All right, good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So, throughout the last few years, particularly during the pandemic, companies large and small were making headlines for choosing to relocate out of California. And these include big names like Oracle, Tesla, Charles Schwab, and the list goes on. Many of these companies point to reasons such as rising crime or policies that making doing business in California difficult. So can you tell us a little bit more about this trend and what's really happening?
I can. Well, unfortunately, California for the last decade has consistently been ranked as the worst state in the country to do business. And this is because of a myriad of different factors, both business owner facing in terms of extra regulation and burdens that are placed on the business owner to operate here, as well as cost of living challenges and overtaxation on the employees themselves. This state's leadership could learn from states like Texas, like Florida, like Arizona, and embrace policies and legislation that would lead to the flourishing and the positivity of the experience for business owners and employees alike that would hopefully drive economic activity here. But instead, they consistently choose the opposite, which are oppressive policies that ultimately deter companies away from the state, like the example you mentioned at the opening of the show.
Right. So can you mention some specific policies that deterring businesses from coming to the state?
Absolutely. So on the business owner side, we're placed with quite a few restrictions in terms of the operating procedures around our business. So some of these are more political, meaning there are a lot of cultural forces that are seeking to infringe upon our ability to operate a business freely with our worldview at the helm. And so these are policies that make sure that there are gender and diversity quotas on our boards and pushing for executive teams to operate in a certain way with compelled speech. When we talk about things like gender expression and things, those cultural forces have driven a lot of businesses out of California, especially if businesses are operating with more of a Judeo-Christian or traditional worldview. Then there are also economic policies that are burdensome to business owners. California is obviously the state in the United States that pushes the hardest for green initiatives. But unfortunately, in the process, they've essentially socialized all of the energy sector in the state of California and then have placed the extra cost on business owners. And so when you hear Gavin Newsom say that he is shooting for California to be completely gas engine free by 2035 and then expects also for businesses to operate with their supply chains in a gas-free manner and prioritizing electrical sources from solar, wind. It's just unrealistic. It's unattainable. Our country's not there yet. Whether or not his pursuit is noble, it's unrealistic. And so what ends up happening is that when you're putting a strain on our grid, when you're putting a strain on our resources, when you also refuse to prioritize a lowering of taxes for the consumer on things like gas taxes that end up affecting the cost of living, you run into two problems. One is it's incredibly cost ineffective to operate a business here with all the extra regulatory tape because of the cultural and political and economic issues. It's also impossible to keep employees because you have employees that say, you know what, I can live, I can breathe, I can embrace my quality of life at half of the cost in Texas. I'm sorry, I'm going to take a job there instead. These policies are unsustainable, and I hope and pray that Gavin Newsom wakes up soon, as well as the rest of the legislature in California.
All right, you mentioned the word pray. Just last year, we saw a case in which a Bakersfield bakery owner refused to make wedding cakes for a same-sex couple because he violated her Christian beliefs. The couple sued her, and in the end, the judge ruled in favor of the bakery owner. So my question for you is, in this case, both sides argue their freedom of speech and expression. Can you speak to this relationship between businesses and consumers when the personal beliefs or political views differ and clash?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great question. And obviously, I'm thankful that the judge ruled in favor of the business owner because this is freedom of religion at its finest. You have to be able to make sure in a free country that no laws or operating procedures infringe upon an individual's ability to themselves individually or for their business corporately operate their business, live their life with their worldview at the helm. And so for this business owner that says, I want to bake cakes and I want to serve my consumers and I want to hold fast to my convictions in the process, they should never be forced or compelled by law to violate those convictions in order to be able to operate their business. And so this is a pure case of freedom of religion. This has been established as our first freedom, because if you get this freedom wrong, every other freedom falls apart. It's why you see that in communist or socialist countries, the first thing the tyrants and the dictators do is they go after the freedom of religion. They make sure that the businesses that operate the economy, that serve as the backbone, have to forego their convictions in order to continue to operate. And so this idea of compelled speech or compelled service, it's fundamentally anti-American. So my message to the consumers that wanted that cake is find another bakery. There are plenty of other bakeries that I'm sure would bake your cake. Allow for this person to hold fast to their convictions, and do not weaponize the state to try to infringe upon those rights allotted to that business owner in the public square.
Sure. Now, here's a personal question. You founded your company, Public Square, in San Diego, California, 2 years ago. Are you considering moving your company out of the state?
You know, as tempting as it is, and it is tempting, and I do not blame the businesses that have left. I think that there are more than enough reasons to get out of Dodge. But for us, we have felt like there's a strong conviction to fight the fight within California's borders. And so we have to incur a lot of extra costs. We have to deal with the fact that we have to hire some remote talent at times because we can't get them to move to California. We have to deal with all of those issues. At the end of the day, though, we believe that California's fight is our fight. We actually want to see if we can rescue this state, and we can have a seat at the table to be able to move the economic policies, the legislation of this state toward our favor. We'll never be able to win if we all leave. And so as starry-eyed and as hopeless as it may seem at times, we are pressing in, and we're in California for the long haul.
Right. Well, you heard about the news In-N-Out Burger is moving to Tennessee. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm proud of them. I celebrate the expansion of In-N-Out. I think they're a phenomenal company that operates with their Christian values at the helm, and I'm grateful for that. I think we need more companies that are unafraid to showcase exactly what they believe about the world, and I'm obviously a fan when great quality of product meets these values that have made our country so special in the first place. In-N-Out's the perfect example of that type of business, and I think more of the country should experience its goodness.
All right, Michael Seifert, founder and CEO of Public Square. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.